They thought they had you figured out. They looked at you, studied your patterns, mapped your reactions, cataloged your weaknesses, and they thought they understood the entire architecture of who you are. They were so confident, so certain. They had you locked in a box they built in their own minds, labeled you, filed you away, and started treating you like a known variable in an equation they were certain they'd already. But here's the thing that's going to change how you see everything that happened to you. They were never studying you. They were studying a performance you didn't even know you were giving. See? While they were busy analyzing the moves you made, they never once stopped to ask why you made them. They saw the pieces on the board. They didn't see the game you were actually playing. They thought they were the chess masters, the architects, the invisible hands steering you toward their desired outcome. Every push they gave you, every trap they set, every whisper campaign, every calculated act of betrayal, all with the certainty of people who believe they're the cleverest minds in the room. Meanwhile, you were doing something they couldn't comprehend, couldn't measure, and absolutely could not stop. You were learning, quietly, completely, in real time. Every move they made against you was data. Every lie they told became a lesson in how they think. Every betrayal peeled back another layer of who they really are beneath the face they showed you. While they thought they were dismantling your trust, they were actually building your intelligence. While they were celebrating what they thought was your destruction, you were sitting in the wreckage and reverse engineering every single tactic they used. They handed you the blueprint of their own psychology and called it a takedown, and you filed it. Every single page. Now stop. Right now, before we go any further. Ask yourself this question and be honest. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to reframe the last year of your life in a way you are not prepared for. What if none of what happened to you was a loss? What if Let's go back. Let's walk through exactly what they believed they were doing to you. Because the gap between what they thought was happening and what was actually happening is where your power lives. They saw you going quiet. They mistook silence for surrender. In their model of reality, quietness means defeat. The defeated retreat. The broken grow silent. The wounded stop fighting. So when you pulled back, when you stopped reacting, when you went dark and internal and still, they celebrated. They told each other you were finished. They started dividing up what they thought you'd left behind. They moved fast, the way predators always move when they believe the prey has stopped running. They saw you enduring. They mistook endurance for helplessness. Every time you absorbed a hit and kept moving, they read it as weakness, as someone with no choice but to take it. They didn't understand that you were absorbing for a reason, that you were letting information come to you rather than chasing it, that every time they struck at you and you stayed composed, you were watching them reveal more of themselves than you ever could have extracted through confrontation. You stayed quiet in a hurricane and they thought you were being battered. You were standing in the eye of it, perfectly still, watching the storm expose itself. They saw you forgiving too easily. They mistook your non-reaction for naivety. When you didn't explode, when you didn't retaliate, when you smiled and nodded and moved. And that assumption, that dangerous, arrogant, catastrophic assumption, is precisely when they made every mistake that will matter. Because blind people don't stay silent in a room of moving shadows. Only hunters do. They saw you building in the dark. They thought you were hiding in shame. When you stopped showing up in certain spaces, when you disappeared from circles that once included you, when you focused inward and stopped broadcasting your movements, they narrated it as collapse. They told the story of someone retreating in defeat. They watched the gap where you used to be and felt satisfied. They never once considered the alternative, that you had simply stopped performing for an audience that was never in. Here is what they could never see, because they were too busy celebrating to look clearly. You were conducting a complete psychological audit of everyone around you, and they were the subjects who didn't know they were being studied. Every time someone showed you who they were under pressure, you logged it. Every time loyalty shifted based on convenience, you noticed. Every time someone laughed at your name in a room they didn't know you could hear, you added it to a file that was growing thicker by the day. You weren't falling apart. You were building a detailed, irreplaceable intelligence map of every person in your life. Who they are when they believe there are no consequences. Who they choose when the stakes reveal the truth. And while they were performing for each other, the social rituals, the alliance building, the carefully staged moments of public sympathy toward you, you were already 3 moves ahead on a board they didn't even know existed. That's the thing about people who think they're manipulating you. They're always playing the short game. Manipulation is fundamentally a short game. It requires the target to remain unaware. And the moment you're aware, the moment you see it clearly, the entire architecture inverts. They become the predictable ones. They become the ones moving in patterns you can anticipate. They become, without knowing it, your most reliable source of information about the world. Let me tell you about the game you were actually running. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't performance. It wasn't even strategy in the conscious sense. Not at first. It was something older and more instinctive than strategy. It was hand until you know every card they're holding. It's the intelligence that says, the person who speaks last in a crisis wins the information war. It's the intelligence that you accessed without even being taught it, because survival pressure is the most efficient teacher that exists. And here's the part that will haunt them, if they ever figure it out. Every single move they made to destabilize you ended up stabilizing you more. Every attempt to make you doubt yourself forced you to examine what you actually believed, what you actually knew, what you actually valued. And that examination created a clarity about yourself that you couldn't have reached any other way. The pressure they applied to break you is what crystallized you. Carbon under pressure doesn't stay carbon. You should know what it becomes. You've already become it. The fundamental error they made, and this is important, pay attention closely, is that they projected their own psychology onto you. This is what manipulators always do. They assume that because fear of exposure stops them, it stops you. They assume that because isolation destroys them, it destroys you. They assume that because losing social validation is their greatest weakness, it's yours. They built a weapon designed to kill the person they were, and then pointed it at someone who is wired completely differently. It's like designing it. They expected you to need what they need. They expected you to hunger for the approval they were strategically withholding. They expected the cold shoulder to land like a verdict you couldn't appeal, couldn't survive, couldn't function without reversing. What they didn't account for is that somewhere along the way, possibly long before, painful internal work of untying your sense of self from other people's opinion of you. And so when they pulled the lever that was supposed to produce panic, nothing happened, and their confusion at your non-reaction is what cracked their entire operation. They expected you to beg, not publicly, not with words, but behaviorally. They expected your actions to curve toward appeasement, toward reconciliation, toward the small daily surrenders that signal to any careful observer, this person needs us. This person is afraid of our disapproval. This person can be controlled through the threat of exclusion. Instead, you curved away. You didn't chase. You didn't, and the silence that filled the space where your begging was supposed to be, that silence was louder than anything you could have said. They heard it. It unsettled them in a way they couldn't name, because when the script doesn't go the way the manipulator wrote it, when the target stops performing the expected response, something breaks in the manipulator's mind. A very specific kind of confusion sets in. The confusion of a con artist who suddenly realizes the mark was never the recognition that they may have fundamentally misjudged who they were dealing with. That maybe, just maybe, the game was never as one-sided as they believed. Now let's talk about what you actually gained. Because this is the part that most people in your position, you gained an advanced experiential education in how deception works, how social power is manufactured, how false loyalty is performed, and how people behave when they believe no one is truly watching them. You have a PhD in human darkness that no institution can grant. Most people spend their entire lives operating on the assumption that the people around them mean what they say. They navigate reality with a trust calibration that is appropriate for a world that other people miss entirely. The slight delay before someone agrees with you. The way a compliment lands slightly wrong. The over-explanation that accompanies a lie. The particular quality of attention that means someone is studying you rather than simply enjoying your company. This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition sharpened to a surgical edge. And there's something else, something more important than the tactical advantage, more important than the intelligence you've accumulated. You've been stress tested at a level that most people never experience. And stress testing, they've never been tested, so they don't know where their cracks are, and the cracks are always there. You've been in the earthquake. You know exactly which walls held and which ones didn't. You've already done the repairs. And now, the next earthquake. The next wave of pressure that life sends your way is going to hit someone who has been specifically, involuntarily, comprehensively prepared for it. This is the advantage they accidentally gave you. The endurance you built while surviving their orchestrated pressure campaign is the same endurance that will carry you through. Still shocked when they encounter betrayal, still destabilized by the kind of conditions you already lived through and adapted to. You graduated from a course they don't even know exists. They're still in orientation. Here is the moment where everything flips, and I need you to sit with this, because it's going to feel strange at first. It's going to feel too good to be true, or maybe too late to matter, but stay with it because it changes everything. Right now, you know what they reach for when they need to reassert control. You know their patterns of deception, their methods of alliance building, their tells under pressure. They showed you extensively, over time, without realizing what they were doing. And they know almost nothing real about you, because what they know about you is based on the version of you that existed before you saw them clearly. They're still working from outdated information. They're still operating who you are and what you're willing to tolerate and what you're quietly moving toward. They're navigating with a map that's completely wrong, and you're navigating with perfect intelligence. This is the game you were running without knowing you were running it. Every day you stayed quiet while they were loud was a day you advanced in silence. Every day they underestimated you was a day they made themselves more predictable. Produces a person who cannot be gaslit, cannot be cornered, cannot be managed by the threat of disapproval or the withdrawal of comfort. They were running a manipulation campaign on someone who was, day by day, becoming manipulation-proof. The irony is almost beautiful, almost, because you also paid a real price for this. Don't let the reframe erase that. The nights were real. The confusion was real. The moments where you genuinely didn't know who to trust were real. The loneliness that came from seeing. Now watch, because this is where it gets fascinating. Here is what they're experiencing right now. The people who thought they had your number, who thought they understood the arc of your story and knew exactly how it ended. They're watching you, and something is wrong. Something in their calculation is off, and they can't identify the variable. They expected visible damage. They expected the kind of defensiveness, the bitterness, the erratic behavior that signals someone still burning in a fire that was set a long time ago. Instead, they're getting something that doesn't fit their model: composure. You have the energy of someone who no longer needs anything from this particular situation to be different than it is. And that energy is genuinely threatening to people who were counting on your need. Your unresolved hunger for justice, for acknowledgement, for the apology they were never going to give, was part of how they maintained leverage. The moment you genuinely stopped wanting it, the moment you arrived at a place where their acknowledgement became irrelevant to your forward motion, the leverage evaporated, and they felt it. They can't name it, but they feel it. What they're reaching for now is interpretation. They're constructing narratives about you, why you've changed, what's behind the composure, what you're hiding, what's coming. Some of them have decided you've gotten arrogant. Some have decided you think you're better than them. Some have invented allies or advantages you suppose. They're trying to explain your psychology using their own psychology as the template. And since your psychology no longer resembles what they're working from, since you've genuinely moved somewhere they don't have a map to, every explanation they generate is going to be, let them build their theories. Let them whisper about what changed in you and why. Let them circle the thing they can't quite articulate, that you seem incomprehensibly fine, that you seem, against all their predictions, to be moving in a direction, that you seem to have accessed something internally that they were certain the campaign against you would eliminate. Because never admit it, They're watching someone who was supposed to be a cautionary tale become a case study in exactly the kind of resilience they don't possess. So here's the question that actually matters. Now that you see the game you were running, what do you do with it? Now that you understand what you've been building in the dark, how do you step into it consciously? Now that you know that the thing they tried to make a wound is actually a weapon, and more than a weapon, a foundation, what do you build on it? Because this is the moment where the unconscious game becomes the deliberate one. This is where the survival instinct becomes an architect. The first thing you do is stop explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand you anyway. The impulse to justify, to clarify, to make sure they know the real story, having a version of you that serves their narrative. Any attempt you make to correct that version will be incorporated into the narrative as evidence for it. Understanding this is not bitterness. It's precision. It's the difference between speaking to be heard and speaking into a void. The second thing you do is become deliberate about invisibility. Not the reactive invisibility of someone hiding from pain, but the strategic invisibility of someone who understands that the most powerful moves happen below the radar, that accumulates without announcement, that builds without performance, that moves without narrating its own movement. That version arrives at destinations that shock everyone who thought they knew your trajectory. Let them calibrate to your past. You're heading somewhere their calibration doesn't cover. The third thing, and this is the one that requires the most genuine inner work, is that you stop letting their version of your story live rent-free inside your own mind. Because here's the insidious thing about sustained manipulation and sustained betrayal. Maybe the version of you that they narrated is somewhere closer to the truth than you want to admit. Evicting that voice is the actual work, and it's not done once. It's done daily, sometimes hourly, in the small private moments when you're alone and the old story tries to reassert itself. You are under no obligation to be the person they decided you were. You are under no obligation to carry the narrative they wrote when they thought you weren't going to survive to dispute it. The only story about you that matters is the one you are currently living, not the one they archived, not the one they still tell each other in rooms you'll never enter. So let's land this. Let's close the loop that opened the moment you started watching this video. They thought they were manipulating you. They thought they were the architects and you were the material. They thought they understood the power dynamic, the leverage points, the pressure necessary to move you in the direction they needed you to go. They thought they were sophisticated operators executing a plan on a person who couldn't see the plan. And for a while, they watched the early conditions that required them to evolve in real time or not survive at all. They forgot that the people who last the longest are not the people with the most resources, or the most allies, or the most carefully constructed plans. They're the people who learn the fastest, who take the most input, process it, not academic performance, but actual adaptive intelligence, is the capacity to keep learning, to keep updating, to keep becoming more accurate about the nature of the world you're moving through. And you learned. Under pressure that was designed to stop you from learning, under conditions that were calibrated to keep you you learned what you discovered about yourself through surviving it. You learned what you understand now about power, about loyalty, about the enormous gap between how people present them, not because you planned it, not because you were smarter than them from the start, but because some part of you, the deepest and most essential part, refused to let the experience be without an audience, without applause, is something they are only now beginning to understand they are dealing with. Let them figure it out. You've already moved on to the next game.